Okay. There's not some chart right here that's saying truck. There was a truck that must have backed up right here. That's here, right? Okay. Is that okay? Back up, please. Back up. Back. Oh my God. Okay, back up, please. Back up.
She had no idea that, within hours, her own family would be asking police to arrest her son. What started as a routine traffic stop in Moses Lake, Washington.
But if you want justice,
I already know who did it.
listen to me, please.
Get out of your car and come get my kid. Put him in cuffs right now.
Don't say anything right now. We don't know. Babe, did you do it? Look at me. Babe, did you do it?
Quickly turned into one of the area's most disturbing homicide investigations. A missing grandfather, a family filled with suspicion, a shallow grave hidden on private property, and a grandson who had already crossed paths with police earlier that same day. At first, none of the officers realized the two incidents were connected. On the afternoon of November 3rd, police spotted a gray Chevrolet Silverado that had been reported stolen only hours before. Several patrol units moved in and conducted a traffic stop. Behind the wheel was 27-year-old Isaiah Thomas, a former college football player who had once been known for his athletic future. As officers approached the truck, they immediately noticed ammunition sitting on the passenger seat. Treating the stop as potentially dangerous, they instructed Isaiah to turn off the engine and step outside. He complied without resistance.
Whoa. Dude, bro.
Hey, go and get out of the car. Get out of the truck, please. Here's what happened. The truck was reported as stolen. Whose truck is this? You talk to me, man.
It's my truck.
During a safety pat-down, Isaiah told officers he was carrying a pocket knife. After removing it, they continued questioning him about the truck.
What up, Greg?
What's up, man?
Alvarado?
Yeah, how you doing, Isaiah?
Another day.
Another day?
Then Officer Alvarado recognized the driver. Years earlier, the two had attended high school together. Alvarado remembered Isaiah as a talented athlete with a bright future, but the man standing in front of him seemed completely different. He appeared distracted, struggled to stay focused during conversation, and repeatedly mentioned wanting a lawyer, even though officers were only investigating the reported vehicle theft. To clear up the ownership of the truck, Officer Alvarado contacted Isaiah's mother, Cassie Thomas.
Hello?
Hello, this is Officer Alvarado with the Moses Lake Police Department. I'm trying to reach Cassie.
This is she?
Hey, do you have a son, Isaiah?
Yes, I do.
We had a call earlier about him being in someone else's vehicle. He's in a truck now, a gray Chevy Silverado.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out if this is his truck or not, because he's saying it is, but the person that called about him said that he stole the truck from another neighbor.
No, that's his and his grandfather's.
Okay, who's his grandpa, if you don't mind me asking?
Richard?
Richard?
Yeah, he probably let him borrow it. He's staying with his grandfather right now.
What's the address?
430 Dale.
Yep, that's where the truck was taken.
Okay, that's
Okay.
weird.
Yeah, no, that clarifies something, because we thought potentially this truck might have been stolen, so we were trying to
No.
figure it out.
No, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
She quickly explained that the Silverado actually belonged to Isaiah and his grandfather, Richard Andrews. Isaiah had been living with Richard, and according to Cassie, it was entirely possible Richard had simply allowed him to use the truck. That explanation changed everything. The vehicle no longer appeared to be stolen, leaving officers with no legal reason to continue detaining Isaiah. Before letting him leave, however, Officer Alvarado decided to speak with him privately. Away from the other officers, he quietly asked whether everything was all right, and even offered to switch off his body camera if Isaiah wanted to talk. Isaiah paused before answering. He said that everyone eventually reaches a point in life where they have to reevaluate everything around them. He never explained what he meant, Alvarado encouraged him to reach out if he ever needed someone to talk to. Isaiah thanked him, climbed back into the truck, and drove away. Neither man knew that only a short time later they would meet again under completely different circumstances. Not long after Isaiah left, dispatch received another call. This time it wasn't about a vehicle. A woman named Kelly Kirkendall reported that her 75-year-old father, Richard Andrews, had suddenly disappeared.
Help you?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could speak to somebody about missing person.
In Moses Lake?
It's my father. Nobody's seen him. Yes, Moses Lake.
Okay. And his first and last name?
Richard Andrews.
And what is his home address? Is it the 430 Dale?
Correct.
All right, Kelly, I've got this report started. I'm going to hand it over to the officers. I just need you to try to find a recent picture of him. And if you hear from him or anything changes before they contact you, go ahead and give us a call back and let us know, okay?
Okay.
His phone went unanswered. Family members couldn't reach him, and no one knew where he had gone. Officers responded to Richard's home to conduct a welfare check. When Sergeant Rodriguez arrived, several relatives were already waiting outside, including Richard's daughters Kelly, Carmen, and Cassie. Then another familiar face stepped out of the house. It was Isaiah Thomas. Only hours earlier, officers had released him following the traffic stop. Now he was standing in the middle of a missing person investigation involving the same grandfather who owned the truck. Investigators began asking basic questions. Isaiah said he had last seen Richard about a day and a half earlier. According to him, Richard mentioned going to another property he owned before leaving. But there was one problem. Family members had already checked that property. Richard had never arrived. As Sergeant Rodriguez continued building a timeline, he noticed something unusual. Most of the family appeared worried and anxious. Isaiah did not. He calmly told officers that Richard sometimes disappeared for days or even weeks, suggesting there was no reason to panic. Cassie agreed that Richard occasionally traveled, but admitted one detail seemed unusual. Richard had left behind his wallet. That wasn't like him. The family's reactions grew increasingly different as more relatives arrived. Then Isaiah's father, Anthony, pulled Sergeant Rodriguez aside. He suggested officers search Richard's nearby shop, explaining that if Richard wasn't home, he often spent time there. Anthony also mentioned something else. He had noticed burned debris near the property that hadn't been there before. That immediately caught the officers' attention. Deputies agreed to follow Anthony to the location, while Sergeant Rodriguez remained behind to finish interviewing the family. As the conversations continued, tension inside the family became impossible to ignore. Anthony openly questioned his own son about Richard's disappearance. Isaiah grew frustrated, insisting everyone kept asking him the same questions. At that point, investigators still had no evidence that a crime had even occurred. Richard was officially considered a missing person. But just as Sergeant Rodriguez prepared to leave, the investigation took a shocking turn. Cassie suddenly walked over to the sergeant and quietly said something that stopped him in his tracks. She urged him to remove Isaiah from his vehicle and put him in handcuffs. Another relative immediately interrupted, telling her not to jump to conclusions because nobody knew what had happened. Only moments earlier, Cassie had remained calm. Now she wanted police to arrest her own son. Rodriguez didn't yet understand why. Within minutes, he was about to find out. Anthony led deputies, roughly 2 miles to Richard's shop, while several family members followed behind. Everyone hoped they would find the missing grandfather alive. Instead, officers discovered disturbed ground near the shop. As family members rushed toward the area, deputies repeatedly ordered everyone to stay back. Then came the horrifying realization. Partially buried beneath the dirt was the body of Richard Andrews. His daughter recognized him almost immediately by his clothing. The missing person investigation was over. It had become a homicide investigation. Officers quickly secured the scene and ordered everyone away from the shallow grave. But emotions exploded. Several relatives immediately accused Isaiah of killing his grandfather. One family member even told deputies there was a rifle inside the house that detectives should locate. Officers acknowledged the information, but explained that every allegation would have to be investigated before reaching any conclusions. As detectives examined the burial site, they noticed signs that someone had tried to hide what happened. The ground appeared carefully repaired. Grass had been placed back over the disturbed soil, and parts of the area looked as though they had been watered to make the fresh dirt blend in. Burned debris was scattered nearby, suggesting someone had also tried to destroy evidence. It was clear that whoever buried Richard had made an effort to conceal the crime, but investigators still didn't know who was responsible or exactly how Richard had died. What they did know was that the focus of the investigation had changed dramatically, and for Isaiah Thomas, the day was far from over. Before long, Sergeant Rodriguez arrived at Richard Andrews's shop and immediately realized the scene had become chaotic. Family members had already moved dangerously close to the shallow grave before officers could fully secure the area. Rodriguez ordered everyone back, explaining that preserving evidence was critical if they wanted investigators to learn exactly what had happened. Even through their grief, several relatives continued insisting they already knew who was responsible. Again, they pointed to Isaiah Thomas. The sergeant listened carefully, but reminded them that accusations alone were not evidence. Detectives would have to follow the facts wherever they led. Once the area was secured, investigators began documenting the crime scene. They noticed patches of burned debris scattered around the property, raising the possibility that someone had attempted to destroy evidence. The shallow grave itself appeared unusually neat. Grass had been carefully placed back over the disturbed soil, and parts of the ground looked freshly watered, suggesting someone had deliberately tried to hide the burial site. Investigators couldn't yet determine whether Richard had been killed there or if his body had been transported afterward. The nearby shop became their next priority. Deputies approached cautiously with weapons drawn, announcing themselves as they cleared each room. No suspect was inside. There were no obvious signs of a violent struggle. One detail, however, caught their attention. The shower appeared to have been used recently. Although investigators documented the observation, it didn't immediately explain what had happened to Richard. Attention soon shifted back to Richard's home. Detectives believed it could contain crucial evidence, but before entering, they obtained a search warrant. While that process was underway, another emotional scene unfolded outside the crime scene. Cassie Thomas arrived after learning her father's body had been discovered. Only a short time earlier, she had urged officers to arrest Isaiah before anyone even knew Richard was dead. Now she stood behind the police tape, devastated. Officers prevented family members from approaching the grave despite repeated requests. Protecting the evidence had become their highest priority. Meanwhile, investigators overheard relatives discussing another concern. Several believed Anthony, Isaiah's father, was heading back to confront his son. Fearing emotions could turn violent, multiple patrol units immediately responded to Richard's house. They arrived just before Anthony did. Within moments, several other family members pulled up as well. Officers quickly stepped between Isaiah and the approaching relatives. Isaiah was searched for weapons and escorted away from the crowd. Anthony looked directly at his son and repeatedly asked one question: "Did you do it?" Isaiah never answered. Instead, he quietly requested a lawyer. Because tensions had become so high, officers placed him inside a patrol vehicle for everyone's safety, while detectives continued investigating. He had also suffered blunt force injuries to the head. After his death, his body had been wrapped in a tarp, transported, and buried in the shallow grave near his shop. The autopsy answered one major question. It explained how Richard died. It still didn't prove who had killed him. The investigation continued for more than 2 months, as detectives analyzed forensic evidence and reviewed every interview. Then, investigators received an unexpected phone call from the county jail. One of Isaiah's fellow inmates claimed he had something important to tell detectives. According to the inmate, Isaiah had spoken openly about Richard's death while they were housed together. The inmate claimed Isaiah admitted cutting his grandfather's throat after asking him whether he believed in God. He also allegedly said Richard had mistreated him throughout his childhood. Detectives documented the statement carefully. Some details matched the medical examiner's findings, but jailhouse informants can sometimes provide unreliable information. Investigators compared the inmate's claims with the physical evidence before making any decisions. Finally, after months of investigation, the case reached its conclusion. Rather than going to trial, Isaiah Thomas pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and unlawful disposal of human remains. On March 10th, he was sentenced to a maximum of 20 years in prison. The sentence also required mental health treatment and included no-contact orders involving several members of his family. In the end, detectives concluded that Richard Andrews had been killed by a single offender. Despite rumors and accusations throughout the investigation, no evidence supported claims that other family members participated in the murder or helped conceal it. What began as a simple traffic stop unexpectedly opened the door to a homicide investigation that exposed years of family conflict, declining mental health, and a tragedy that forever changed those involved. Through body camera footage, forensic evidence, witness interviews, and months of investigative work, detectives pieced together what happened to Richard Andrews. For one family, however, the legal case was only the beginning. The emotional consequences will likely last far longer than any prison sentence.